So today I'm going to show you how we help our members reach their financial goals significantly faster. And this is going to be well over a decade, 2 decades faster. So now what I'm going to show you is not an opinion. This is purely math. It's first principles. So I'm going to walk you through here a free report we wrote that you can access at no cost. And I'm going to walk you through it and show you some of the key parts of this report. Make sure you download this. The link is right below this video. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. Have you ever felt like building wealth is so slow? I'm going to explain exactly why that's the case, and it's going to help you get a lot of clarity. So this is about getting a clear framework for reaching financial independence decades later. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the key parts here. So one of the things I'll share with you really quickly is that with this report, you're going to get this wealth journey that is broken up into the 3 phases we have people go through, and you'll understand why we have 3 phases here in a minute. And everything I'm going to talk about, they're right here in this. It's hard to see here, but you'll get a whole dedicated PDF just with this report, just with this for this one wealth journey map. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about the big picture first. Whenever you're building wealth, you really have to have a mental model because it's going to help you understand the world and put things in the right places. Mental models and these frameworks are critical to your success, and these have been instrumental in our members' success. So here's how we look at it. The whole wealth creation has 3 parts. You've got the roadmap, you've got the vehicle, and you've got the driver. And I've talked about these in previous videos. The roadmap is critical. This is your first step, is understanding the whole roadmap, because most people dive in and they start investing without understanding the roadmap. And what you're going to find out today is how critical that is. So that's what we're going to focus on today, is the roadmap. So in here, let's go ahead and let me ask you a question. Would you drive somewhere not knowing what the terrain looks like or what the bottlenecks are on the freeway? Okay, or what the weather is going to look like, right? You have to have an idea what the terrain is going to look like. And this is a journey that you're going to be on for your whole life. This is your wealth journey. Unfortunately, most people don't do that. And so let's just talk about why this is so important here. We're going to start with understanding why clarity comes before strategy. So let's just say, let's look at this here. Think about your daily drive through the city. And think about certain spots on the freeway where traffic always slows down. These same few choke points, you know them every single day. You know them exactly where they happen. And because you've been there before, you know that there are side streets that you can take, that will get you to your destination much, much faster, without going faster, without doing anything illegal. All you're doing is avoiding these choke points, these bottlenecks. Well, it turns out in wealth building, you have the same exact thing, and we're going to point them out right now, okay? So this is what happens with most people, and they're stuck in traffic, and this is what's happening with a lot of people on their wealth building journey. They are stuck in the same choke points we know and we can predict, and mathematically we're talking about here. So let's go ahead and look at some of these things. So instead of understanding where these choke points are, people are just investing. They're just buying stocks, ETFs, properties, whatever they are, but they're stuck in this one place, okay? And most people never get through this choke point. Let's look at where these are. So let me actually jump ahead. Again, this is not opinion, this is math. I want you to look at this chart here. Now, many of you have seen this chart. This is the compounding interest that everyone talks about, and no one tells you certain things about compound interest. And I'm going to talk a lot about compound interest more in future videos, but let's just look at this here. This shows year 1, this shows year 30 here, and this looks so impressive. Everyone is like, wow, look at this, right? Here's the part that most people don't get. Most of the wealth is built in the last third of this chart. And this is a known thing in compound interest. And what everyone tells you that understands math will tell you compound interest is extremely ineffective in the beginning. I mean, look at the gray part. The gray part is the money you put in, the principal. In the first 10 years, you're pretty much wasting your time. In the second 10 years, you're starting to build a little bit, but it's not that much. Really, over 50% of your wealth in compound interest comes in the last 10 years. So why is this interesting? Because, let's go back to this over here. Compound is ineffective early on because the starting amount is way too small. This is the problem, is a 10% return on $10,000 is $1,000, and that mathematically is correct. But practically, it's insignificant. And again, the formula works. We're not saying there's anything wrong with the formula. It works, but the outcome doesn't matter yet. And this creates this dangerous illusion that I just have to wait. I just have to be patient. Folks, that's a bottleneck. That waiting is a bottleneck, and everyone tells you that. So here's what you have to understand. That what if you can actually jump ahead? Let's look at how you do that. What if you can jump ahead? What if you can jump to the good stuff? And so the thing that you have to understand is that in the first part of your journey, you cannot even count on compound interest, but the way you invest and the way everyone tells you to invest is based on compound interest. It is a waste of time. And so you have to ask yourself, do I really want to wait 20 years? This first 20 years, I want to just be clear. You are paying 20 years of your life to get to the good stuff. What if you can actually get to the good stuff much, much faster? This is one part of the bottleneck. This is one part of the traffic we're talking about earlier. And so instead of being stuck in traffic for 20 years to get to the good stuff, why don't you just skip it, take the side streets and get there much faster? Let's talk about how you do that. But let me go back here. I want to look at this here. At an 8% return, roughly 53%, over 50% of all your wealth created over 30 years happens in the final 10 years. In other words, you pay 20 years of your life. By the way, you should get this report and read it. It will change the way you think completely. You pay 20 years of your life just waiting for the part where compounding finally becomes meaningful. Okay? Now it gets more interesting. This has been there the whole time. Everyone knows this. So, in fact, so much so that Charlie Munger actually said that. And here's what he said in the 1990s. He said, the first $100,000 is a bitch, but you got to do it. Find a way to get your hands on $100,000. After that, you can ease off the gas a little bit. Now, this was in 1990s, okay, which feels like 1900s. But what he was saying is, get yourself enough capital so that it can you jump ahead. You don't have to wait that whole time waiting for this to work. But this was in the 1990s. In today's dollars, this is equivalent to over $300,000. In other words, what he's saying in today's dollars, you want to really get $300,000 to get to and start compounding from there, because otherwise it is very difficult. It takes you forever to go from $10,000 to $100,000 or $300,000 in this case. And so Munger wasn't praising hardship. He was pointing at structural hurdle no one talks about. He wasn't trying to be motivational. He was sharing a mathematical truth. He was pointing to psychology. He wasn't pointing to psychology. He was pointing to the mathematical threshold where compounding begins to matter. This is what Charlie Munger was telling us all along. Okay? Now, let's make this more interesting now. So this here is one bottleneck. So let's look at the chart here. Let me see if I have let's look at this chart. Again, by getting the report, you're going to get a whole PDF where you can zoom in and look at these details here. So the first part of your journey is really about skipping the whole compounding and getting to the sort of 21st year and letting that start working for you. But the first 20 years is a waste of time if you're trying to do compound interest. So what you want to do is you want to play a different, you're going to use a different strategy. And this is what we talk about here. Now, In this report, we're not trying to tell you what strategy to use. What we're trying to do is create clarity on your whole roadmap. So once you have the clarity, you can now pick the strategies that work for you. So your goal in the first phase here, what we call grow capital, is to actually grow the capital exactly what Charlie Munger was talking about. But you want to get it to significantly more than 100,000, okay, especially in today's dollars. For our members, we try to get them over $1 million as fast as possible using very dedicated strategies, because we understand the bottleneck. The bottleneck is that you don't have enough capital. So what you want to do, your first objective in grow capital is to actually grow your total assets, get it to $1 million, and then let that start working for you. And you want to do that as fast as possible, 5, 6, 7 years. You want to do it as quickly as possible. And so that's your first goal. Then you go to the second phase, phase 2. Now you have all this money, all this total assets, and it's generating cash flow. Guess what? If you're not careful, you can get stuck in a different traffic, okay, different part of the freeway. And this is a known problem for quite a few people that have crossed the first part. Most people, by the way, I would say 85-90% of the people are stuck in this traffic, phase 1, and they never get out because they're depending on compound interest, which again, like I said, doesn't work here. It's ineffective. Phase 2 now, for the few people that make it through, they get stuck in another part. And so you have to understand the bottleneck. And here's the bottleneck. What you want to do at this point is you want to deleverage, but at the same time buy appreciating assets because you have enough cash flow. Most people think, you know what, I'm making my $10,000 a month at this point. I don't care. Guess what? If you don't fix that, and you have fixed income, that fixed income over time goes down, meaning the purchasing power goes down. That means $10,000 today and $10,000, 20 years from now won't buy you the same stuff. What you want is that $10,000 to keep increasing every year so that you can keep buying the same stuff or more stuff, right, over time. So that's called purchasing power. What you want to do in phase 2 is focus on increasing purchasing power. Right? So make sure your cash flow keeps going up. And so now you're like, okay, I have this $10,000. What am I going to do with it, right, per month or whatever it is, $20,000, whatever it is. What you're going to do then is you're going to buy appreciating assets and you're going to start deleveraging because you had to leverage up earlier. And it's almost like a booster with a rocket. You're taking off. And once you hit what's called escape velocity, where you're done with the boosters in a rocket, and that is the equivalent of using very specific leverage. Now you're done with that leverage. You're going to start getting rid of it, but you're not going to get rid of it completely because it has a different purpose at that point. Now, as you can see here, this whole thing is very methodical and very intentional, because at the end of the day, you don't want to waste time, right, on your journey. You want to know exactly where the bottlenecks are, and you want to know exactly what to do so that you don't waste time. Most people are wasting time. They don't have any of this detail. And this is just high level, by the way, folks, okay? So there are 3 bottlenecks on your whole journey. There's actually more, but the key big ones we're talking about are in phase 1. I just mentioned that to you. Phase 2, again, like I'm mentioning this, and phase 3 we're going to talk about. So you have to know these bottlenecks and what are the KPIs, what are the metrics you're going to track. So in phase 2, you're going to start buying appreciating assets. You're going to also deleverage so that you have the right structure so that when you move into phase 3, by the way, at the end of phase 2 is when you reach your financial goals. At the end of phase 1, you have enough total assets to reach your financial goals, but then you have to have the right structure. At the end of phase 2, you have the right structure and the right assets and the right cash flow. Now you move into phase 3. This is when you quote unquote retire. This is when you hit your freedom and financial independence, and you start living on the money coming in, the passive income. At this point, you want to make sure that you never tap into your principal. So at this point, what you want to do is have enough total assets. You want to have enough cash flow, but what you're going to focus on is you're going to have a little bit more cash flow than what you're aiming for. So let's just say you're aiming for $10,000 a month. You really want to aim at that point to $12,500 a month. You're going to multiply by this number here, 1.25 or higher. That additional money is buffer. So this way, as your cash flow is coming in, you're not having to, if there's an emergency, tap into principal. And so there are a number of things we're going to do. We'll show you to protect that. So one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to have an additional buffer called the volatility buffer. What this does is that if for any reason there's an emergency, you're going to tap into that and borrow money out and then pay it back from the cash flow, the additional cash flow coming in. So that additional cash flow plays a very important role in your retirement. So this is what you're going to do, and you're going to make sure you never tap into principal. So we're going to protect the principal so that it can keep growing for a very long time. And you're not going to be selling any of your appreciating assets. So for that could be real estate, for example. It could be different things that appreciate in value over time. Now, obviously, there's software that handles all of these calculations for you and tells you exactly what they are. But for this purposes, you have to understand, again, the bottlenecks. So these are the three main bottlenecks on your journey. Again, like I said, there are minor ones that you have to address, but these are the big ones. So let's reiterate the whole thing here. Your whole wealth journey map, there are parts of that journey that have choke points. And what you want to do is you want to know what they are. Let me see if I can zoom into this so I can show you more. You'll notice here in phase one, what the objective is to increase total assets. Now you understand why, because you're not going to be using anything like compound interest here. And over here, time is working against you. And inflation is working against you. So you want to change that. Once you know you're done with the phase one, you're going to move into phase two. And this is here where you're going to start taking all this cash flow that's coming in and you're going to structure everything. So the objective here, you can see here, grow appreciating assets while strategically deleveraging. Now, deleveraging is a very important point. It doesn't mean that you are paying down your leverage. It could be. It simply means you have to have the right ratios, okay? And here, again, it's critical you understand the primary bottlenecks here. Capital is growing, but structure is unbalanced. Over here on the left side, the primary bottleneck is insufficient capital. That's what Charlie Munger was talking about. In phase three, income fragility. This is the part where we said you have to make sure that your passive income keeps growing every year by having appreciating assets, and you're going to keep some leverage because it acts as a inflation shield. So what does that mean? Most people don't realize that the right amount of leverage done and structured correctly acts as a bulletproof, essentially, for inflation. And so you're going to lower that to a certain ratio and keep it, and then over time you can pay it down, but you have to have some leverage as you build up your appreciating assets and as you start living in financial freedom here. Okay, so you have to know how much leverage to keep, but make sure you keep a little bit because that, again, make sure it's structured correctly. So that gives you the whole journey map here, and you can see how we can, let me go back here, just show you a little bit about this report. So make sure you download this report right below this video. It is really, really well done. We wrote it so that you guys can understand the whole roadmap. So again, we talked about phase one, grow capital. The bottleneck is insufficient capital. The next one is the bottleneck is unbalanced structure in phase two. The few people that get into phase two don't realize that. And we're giving you exactly what the bottleneck is and exactly what to do. Phase three, this is when you've reached your passive income goals. And what you're trying to do here is you want to make sure that the cash flow lasts forever and your assets last forever. A lot of people will run out of money when they retire, and that is something you never want to do. Okay, so again, this is why we talk about these things. So this shows you what to expect, what the bottlenecks are, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are planning for all of this stuff, because you can take what takes 30, 40 years and squeeze it down to less than 10 years. Because you know exactly what to expect and when to buy, the right sequence. Most people don't realize the sequence is critical in investing. the sequence in which you do things, in sequence of those phases, the sequence in your strategies, all of that matters. So let's go back here. I want to just wrap it up and share with you. Again, phase 1, jump over here. Phase 2, use the cash flow to structure everything so that you have even more appreciating assets. And you have the right ratios for leverage. You don't want to have too much leverage. Leverage is awesome to help build wealth, but too much can really hurt you. So you want to make sure you have the right amount of ratios. So with that, you now know the 3 bottlenecks, you know the KPIs. Make sure you use that to your advantage. Most investors are stuck over here. This is the traffic they're stuck in, and they keep thinking, I have to have patience, I have to have patience, I have to have patience. You're going to pay 20 years out of this chart, 20 years to get to the good stuff. There's no need to do that. There's absolutely no need to do that, and Charlie Munger told you that, right, with this quote. So hopefully this was helpful. If you really enjoyed it, go ahead and like this, share it with other colleagues, investors who can really get the benefit out of this. Again, download this report. Make sure you read it fully, and let us know what you think of these videos right below this video. Okay, comment. Let us know, what did you get out of this, and what do you think you should do for these choke points? Okay, I'll see you soon.